3 corrections officers. 3 discoveries inside facilities most people will never see the inside of. A guard doing a routine cell check who found a wall that had been hollowed out from the inside over 11 years by an inmate everyone believed had been a model prisoner the entire time. A night shift officer who noticed the same inmate standing motionless at the same spot on the same cell door every single night at 2 a.m. for 3 weeks before discovering what he was actually doing. And a warden who received a transfer request from an inmate from a facility that, according to every official record, had been closed for 9 years. These are documented accounts from people who worked inside the system. Lights off, headphones on. Officer Daniel Reyes had worked at a medium-security correctional facility in Central Texas for 9 years. In the spring of 2019, he was assigned to conduct a routine structural inspection of a cell block built in the 1970s, following a maintenance report of minor cracking in several walls. The inmate occupying cell 114, a man named Walter, had been incarcerated at the facility for 11 years on a 20-year sentence. By every account in his file, Walter was a model inmate. No disciplinary write-ups in over 6 years, worked in the facility library, polite to staff, the kind of inmate correctional officers describe as no trouble at all. Reyes entered cell 114 during a scheduled inspection while Walter was at his library shift. He examined the wall behind Walter's bunk, where the maintenance report indicated cracking. He tapped the wall with a small inspection hammer, listening for the hollow sound that would indicate structural weakness behind the surface. The section behind the bunk sounded different from the rest of the wall, significantly different, not a crack, a void. Reyes called in a second officer and a maintenance supervisor. With proper documentation and authorization, they removed a section of the wall surface. Behind it was a cavity, roughly 2 feet deep, 3 feet wide, running the length of the bunk. Inside, investigators found a collection of items that had taken, by their estimate, years to accumulate without detection. Hand-carved tools made from melted plastic and metal fragments, a detailed hand-drawn map of the facility's internal layout, including guard rotation patterns marked with timestamps spanning what appeared to be months of observation. A notebook filled with measurements, wall thickness, distances between support beams, the exact dimensions of every air duct on that wing. And at the back of the cavity, a section of the exterior-facing wall had been worked on directly. Not breached, not yet, but the load-bearing brick had been carefully scored and weakened along a precise rectangular outline consistent with the size needed for a person to pass through. Investigators determined that the work represented years of effort conducted exclusively during library shift hours when guard supervision in that block was reduced, and concealed behind a removable panel disguised to match the wall surface texture so precisely that 11 years of routine inspections had never identified it. Walter was placed in administrative segregation pending investigation. He did not deny the work. When asked how long it had taken, he reportedly said, as long as it needed to. He was never able to provide a clear answer as to why, after 11 years of patient, methodical work, he never attempted to actually breach the final wall. Reyes said in his report that what stayed with him was not the tools or the map, it was the realization that Walter had spent over a decade being watched, evaluated, and trusted, while spending every available unsupervised hour building an exit he never used. He said, "We are trained to watch for the man who breaks the rules. Nobody trains you to watch for the man who is patient for 11 years." Officer Patricia Wells worked the night shift at a state correctional facility in Ohio for 4 years. Night shift in a cell block is generally quiet. Most inmates sleep, and the job consists largely of periodic walks and head counts. In March 2021, during her standard 2 a.m. round, she noticed an inmate named Cody housed alone in cell 220, standing at his cell door. Not lying on his bunk, standing, facing the door, motionless. It was unusual but not alarming on its own. She noted it and continued her round. The following night, at the same time, during the same round, Cody was standing in the same position, facing the door, still. She mentioned it to the officer relieving her shift, who reported the same observation the following 2 nights. Always 2 a.m., always standing, always facing the door. After 1 week of the same pattern, Wells flagged it to her supervisor as a possible mental health concern. A wellness check was scheduled. During the wellness check, conducted at a randomized time outside the 2 a.m. window, Cody appeared entirely normal. He denied any unusual behavior, said he sometimes had trouble sleeping, and the visit was logged as inconclusive. The pattern continued for 2 more weeks. Wells began timing her rounds more precisely to observe him directly rather than relying on second-hand reports. On the 18th consecutive night of the pattern, she approached his cell door quietly during her round and watched for several minutes without announcing herself. Cody was not simply standing, he was speaking, extremely quietly, almost inaudibly, facing the small wire mesh window in his cell door. Wells could not make out words, but the cadence was consistent and rhythmic, as though he were having a conversation. The cell across the narrow corridor from his, cell 219, had been unoccupied for 6 weeks following the previous inmate's transfer. Wells requested camera footage be reviewed for the corridor. Standard fixed cameras covered the hallway, but were not angled to clearly show what, if anything, was inside the empty cell across from Cody's door. When Cody was eventually interviewed directly by a mental health clinician after 3 weeks of documented behavior, Cody stated that he had been talking to his cellmate. He had not had a cellmate. He had been housed alone for the entire duration. When the clinician asked who he believed he was talking to, Cody described in detail a man who he said had been in cell 219 before being moved. A man's name, physical description, and mannerisms Cody described with specificity. Facility records confirmed that an inmate matching that exact description had been housed in cell 219 2 years earlier. That inmate had been transferred to a different facility entirely and had no record of ever being housed near Cody, who had arrived at the facility after that inmate's transfer. Cody had never met him, had no documented contact with him, could not have known his name through any normal facility staff could identify. Wells said the case was never resolved to her satisfaction. The behavior eventually stopped after approximately 5 weeks, as suddenly as it began. Cody was later asked again about the nightly conversations and reportedly said only, he stopped talking back.
If you are not subscribed to Mr. Fadoo Horror yet, subscribe now. Every week there are new cases like these. Hit the like button too. Story 3 is the last one tonight, and it raises a question that was never officially answered. Warden Linda Foss had run a medium security facility in upstate New York for 6 years. Part of her administrative duties involved processing inmate transfer requests between facilities within the state system. Routine paperwork, usually handled by her administrative assistant without her direct involvement. In November 2022, a transfer request crossed her desk directly because of a processing error that required her signature. The request sought to transfer an inmate into her facility from what was listed as the Hollis Creek Correctional Facility. Foss had worked in the state corrections system for over 20 years. She did not recognize the name Hollis Creek. She asked her administrative assistant to pull the facility's records for verification, as required before any inter-facility transfer could be approved. Her assistant could not locate active records for a facility by that name in the current state corrections database. Foss escalated the inquiry to the State Department of Corrections Central Records Office. The response she received after several days stated that Hollis Creek Correctional Facility had been officially decommissioned and closed 9 years earlier, following a structural assessment that found the facility no longer met safety standards. All inmates had been transferred to other facilities at that time, and the building had since been formally deactivated within the state system. The transfer request, however, listed Hollis Creek as the inmate's current and active facility of origin, with an active inmate identification number tied to that facility, dated with a booking date 8 months prior, 7 years after the facility's official closure. Foss requested a full audit of the inmate's ID number. The number returned a valid match in the state's master inmate database, associated with a man's original sentencing records dating back 17 years for a conviction in a county that no longer existed under that name, following a 2015 county consolidation. The audit could not establish which physical facility the inmate had actually been held in for the 8 months prior to the transfer request, since the facility named in his most recent active record had not existed in operational form for nearly a decade. The Department of Corrections opened an internal review into the discrepancy. Foss was informed approximately 4 months later that the matter had been resolved through what was described to her only as a records reconciliation error connected to a legacy database migration that had occurred years earlier, and that no further details would be provided to her as warden, as the matter fell outside her facility's jurisdiction. The inmate was never transferred to her facility. Foss never learned where he had actually been held during those 8 months, or how an active booking record had been generated at a facility that, according to every official source she could access, no longer existed. She said in an account she later shared with a colleague, "I have run a corrections facility for over 20 years. I know how paperwork works. I know how records get migrated and how errors happen. What I was given was not an explanation. It was a way to stop asking the question."
3 officers, 3 discoveries inside a system built on documentation, supervision, and routine. A wall that took 11 years to weaken and was never breached. A conversation with someone who was never there. A facility that, according to every official record, had not existed for 9 years, generating active paperwork as though it still did. None of these cases were ever fully closed. All 3 officers continued their careers. None of them have forgotten what they found.
Hit the like button right now. It tells YouTube to put these cases in front of more people. Subscribe to Mr. Fadoo Horror if you are not already. This is part 1 of a 3-part prison horror series. Part 2 covers what inmates themselves experienced inside these facilities. Part 3 covers what happened during visitation. Both are coming soon. Drop a comment below. Which story disturbed you the most? The wall, the 2 AM inmate, or the closed facility? I read every reply. I will see you in the next one.